My ex found me on social media and he had known somebody I dated for a very short time. That was kind of his end to build trust. And then it was like, oh, we write similar stuff. And he'd show me writings that were phenomenal. He wanted to do a Christian camp for kids. And he used to get mad because he'd like, why don't you let me go into your social media and friend request your friends? And I had a roadblock early on, like, no, I don't. Now it makes sense. I'm like, that's pretty scary, right? And he was putting my business and stuff under a series of LLC. He wanted me to put my home under there and us move out of state. So you see the writing on the wall, right? Welcome to Rise, Reclaim, and Renew with Joanie Elizabeth, the podcast for women who are ready to step into their strength, rewrite their story, and live a life that feels aligned, confident, and deeply true. Hi, I'm your host, Joanie Elizabeth, therapist, coach, writer, speaker, and fierce advocate for women who are rising out of old patterns, reclaiming their worth, and renewing the way they show up in the world. Here, we will explore the real life moments that shape us, the healing that transforms us, and the mind-body wellness tools that help us to grow forward with intention and courage. Every episode is created to empower you, to remind you of your resilience, your brilliance, and your ability to create a life that feels grounded, joyful, and authentically yours. So, settle in, take a deep breath, grab a cup of coffee or your favorite beverage, and get ready to rise, reclaim, and renew one meaningful conversation at a time.
Joanie Hansen is a counselor. Her business is called Wellness with Joanie, and I've been following her on the internet for a while, and I just love the things that you're putting out. I love the work that you're doing. Joanie, welcome.
Thank you very much. I'm very grateful to be here.
So tell us how you work with people. Do you have a specialty when it comes to counseling?
I do a number of things, but originally I was helping people, and I still do, with anxiety, depression, stress, and changes in life. Now I've added in helping people learn about narcissistic abuse and recover from it to get their precious value and worth back in life, and where people go from feeling broken and will they ever be able to regain their voice again to watching them make tremendous, amazing changes.
I love that you said recovering, because I feel like so many times when we go through things in our life, it feels like something happened to us and we're damaged. And I love the idea that we're not damaged. Doctors, lawyers, so many people get pulled in by a narcissist, by other things too, addiction. And somehow we think that there's a level, or there's certain people that aren't touchable. But I love the fact that it can happen to any of us, but there is hope and healing.
Absolutely. And I've met so many precious people that are in major, wonderful positions in life: doctors, lawyers, pastors, counselors, coaches. It doesn't matter. It can affect anybody, even stay-at-home moms or dads. And it does happen to men too, by the way, because
Yeah.
people want to predominantly think, oh, it's all women. But yeah, as I say, it really is something that's hard to fathom because you can't see it on the outside. Like if you had a cut on you and we go, oh, Laurie, we need to address that. Look, you're bleeding. People don't see it with the emotional, financial, and often sometimes even physical abuse unless they're showing broken bones or black and blue.
And in my experience, I think sometimes the person going through it wants to believe in the best side. So it's hard for them to take the, let's call it the negative side of the person who's coercive or narcissistic. And so it's really easy to keep going. Like we've seen this in drugs and alcohol. I'll never do it again. What does it take for a woman and man to understand what they're involved in?
Well, it can take a lot because there's a lot of emotional abuse, and often the narcissist is, well, there's three different forms of narcissism, but often they're very convincing, very charming, very likable, very believable. It really causes the victim to question their reality. Because on one end, like, wow, he or she, they're so kind and everybody likes them. Not always. There's some people that see through it right away, but it takes a lot of just untangling. And I've helped people where they were questioning their reality, like, am I crazy? Because they're seeing this polarity. And I say, journal what you're noticing, journal what that person is saying to you. And that alone has been the beginning roadmap to going, oh, I'm not crazy. Oh, this really did happen. Learning firm boundaries. So I call it gray rock method with a narcissist, meaning if you can go absolutely no contact, you cannot rationalize with them, which, boy, that was hard for me to even fathom because I'm kind-hearted and I'll keep my loving, kind heart, but want to be able to have a normal conversation. You can't. It'll get twist turned. You'll be gaslit. So gray rocking, having firm boundaries, healthy social support, counseling, coaching so that you can heal along the way and get that support. Like, no, you're not being a terrible person by cutting off communication. If you have to have communication, if you're going through a divorce or you're still raising children together, use a parenting app, limit the conversation, don't give in to all the twists and turns that I'm hearing this more and more from parents going, oh my goodness, they're writing a book and they're accusing me in the app. And I'm like, don't give in to that. Just stick to your facts. So it takes really the stepping away, getting clear on what you're seeing, hearing, what's going on. So you have that clarity, healthy social support, a trained professional. I highly recommend that because they're going to help guide you of different next steps and unpacking what was going on and learning healthy strategies, safety plan if needed. That's highly recommended because I will say the more boundaries you have with a narcissist, you will see the worst of them. They don't like to be called out. They don't like to not have the attention, and even negative attention will wire them up like crazy and they'll take you down a ugly, well, in my case, it was a hurricane.
Wow. Since you said that, was that your interruption? Is that why you've now added this to your plethora of counseling?
Absolutely. Oh my goodness. I really thought that I had finally the love of my life. He convinced me that, like, you're the best thing ever. And I feel so comfortable sharing things with you that I've never shared with anybody about myself. I'm here for you. He worked very rapidly on building my trust. Then, over a period of well, now looking back, I can see that I know the red flags. I didn't know what a narcissist was back then. I didn't have much, we had a little, maybe I want to say a paragraph. It might have been a chapter in a book when I was doing my degree in 2005. So it wasn't like a big thing. And for me, it registered they're an arrogant person. I thought, okay, no big deal. I will wish those people well, but I don't want that type of person in my personal circle. This was a whole level of something that I was not prepared for. When I finally started to realize he does not care about me, he doesn't love me, I fell in love with who I thought he was, who he mirrored. He was mirroring me, all the things that he noticed that were good and true and genuine, and he would mirror that because it built my trust. And then he would discard and be very, well, emotionally abusive and verbally abusive and financially abusive. And so it was hard for me to understand, but he would quickly be saying, don't worry, I'm going to take care of this, only to let me down over and over again. When I finally realized, I call it the veil was ripped off my eyes because I had this beautiful veil, like, oh, this man loves me. I was trying to hold on to the covering on my eyes because that part felt amazing. But when it was ripped off my eyes, I couldn't unsee what I saw. And that was my beginning journey of I want to learn strong boundaries. I want to learn what is narcissism. At one point, that man, one of his parents had said, because I would call saying, will you pray for me? He's hurting me. He's messaging other women inappropriately. He's not caring when I'm crying. He's putting me down. And that parent said, do you think he's a narcissist? And I went, no, he's so kind. And by the way, he did know, had studied seminary school, so he knew how to kind of do some biblical abuse of me as well, but I untangled that. Started studying about narcissism, and the day that I found the checklist, you don't go to a narcissist and say, I think you're a narcissist, but I didn't know that, so I bring it to him with tears. And I said, oh my goodness, I'm worried you're a narcissist. And he said, no, I'm not. And I'm like, how do you know? Oh, I've researched that. Well, that should have been a clue. Other people probably called him that. But anyway, and from there, I went to my own counselor, and she helped me really untangle this. And at one point, because I was still trying to hang in there, and she said, Joanie, you're this beautiful woman inside and out. You're this beautiful jewel, and you're allowing him to throw, well, I'm going to use a different word, but she said mud at you. And are you going to keep allowing that? And she's like, I know you probably don't want to hear that, but you need to hear that. This is not okay. So I did a lot of counseling, my own studying on boundaries, learned the gray rock method. I had to be stronger than I ever thought that I could because, as we said earlier, you put a boundary in, you're going to see an ugly side. And I saw things in this man that I had never seen before that were really scary. And I believe, really, I could be wrong, but had I had the boundaries I have now, I probably, unfortunately, would have had physical abuse. Thankfully, I didn't have to go through that. But yeah, you see an ugly, ugly side, and the things they put you through are hard to fathom. When I said I cannot do this is marriage is ending, and he knew it, and we had allegedly agreed upon everything. When he was served papers, I kid you not, he said, now you're in for a hurricane. And I had to untangle a lot of things that he would play games with and hold over my head and all kinds of stuff. But it also led to what I say now is I found my value, my worth, my voice, and I'm helping more and more people to realize you're not alone. And I have people go, but you don't understand, they're doing this or that. I'm like, of course they are. I'd like to say they're not, but be prepared. You'll be going, what the heck, the smear campaign, everything. Don't let it pull you into their storm. I know easier said than done because they go for kind-hearted, empathetic people, so it's really hard. But to say you're not alone, I had one person say one time, what, do they go to school to learn this stuff? Because it's all similar stuff. But I'm like, don't let it define you. Don't let it pull you into their storm, and stand firm on what you know to be true. And at some point, they will hang themselves because they do. Build your value and your worth. And it takes time because you can feel very disoriented, not able to trust. Had many people like, I don't even know what I like. I don't know what steps to take. But I love to give messages of hope to precious people, men and women who've been through this, to say, you can find your value and your worth, your voice again, and you can let go of that old blueprint in your mind or that old GPS and plug in new information and come back better and stronger. It'll be different. And yes, there's grief and loss in there from what you thought was to going, when I went, oh my gosh, I fell in love with a fake person. That's kind of hard to fathom too. Somebody that doesn't really love you.
Joanie, you're so brave because once we recognize, so I went through a similar situation, which I did not talk about because of the danger involved. So I kept that silent as I walked through it, as I got myself and my children safe. But recognizing I fell in love with somebody that didn't love me. and how he mirrored everything he knew I liked. And that was so terrifying. And the few times I did put up a boundary, that's when I would get a red flag and go, wait a minute. For me, it was, I was only married less than a year, but the ongoing hurricane was much longer. But for you to be brave enough to say, I need to help others because more people are going through this, and I think more people than we would like to really admit.
Oh, yeah, it is huge out there. I did a speech on part of my chapter in one of the books about untangling from narcissistic abuse. And I had a gentleman come up to me and a woman afterwards saying, thank you for sharing that. And do you think that I will be able to find myself again? And he shared a little bit about how what he was going through and he wanted that hope. And I'm like, you absolutely can. I'm not going to say it'll be easy, but you can. And he said, I needed to hear that. And these stories need to be shared. Not everybody is meant to share publicly or whatever, but when we can hear a message of hope or going, okay, here's a professional that went through this or other professionals or even a stay-at-home mom or dad or whatever, a precious person, but to say, okay, look what they went through and now they're helping more people to celebrate their value, their worth, and not let somebody devalue you anymore. Because a narcissist, they will leave you bankrupt in every way, shape, and form if they can, including, I don't want you to have any sense of wellness, so you never get out there and be happy again or find somebody. And that is a lie that you do not need to hold on to. It may feel like it in the moment, absolutely, and do things to comfort and soothe your emotions, be compassionate and kind with yourself. And please don't feel bad to reach out and share with a trusted friend or professional so that you have the support that you deserve.
I had a friend that recognized the behavior when I decided it was time to get away, and she pushed me to get a counselor who had been through similar, which helped me tremendously. And then I had another wonderful friend who drugged me to a Woman of Faith conference, and I was in the major throes of I am a loser. I am nothing. I believed all of
Mhm.
it. And I did not want to sit there at a Woman of Faith conference feeling like my life was over. All the professional things, all the speaking, all the things I had always wanted to do were now gone because of what I'd gone through. And of all things, Billy Graham has two daughters. One is, I think, Anne, who goes and does all this amazing stuff, and she's a huge success. Well, he had another daughter who the exact same thing happened to. She met a man, charming. He won her over quickly. And before you knew it, had dismantled her life. And Billy Graham and his wife believed her, and they helped her get away from him, even though they didn't believe in divorce. They could see the damage. And when she shared her story, like, I'm so mad at my friend for dragging me to that conference. And yet that was what I needed to hear.
Oh, absolutely. And it's interesting you use the word duped because that's what I've said in some of my speeches. I was duped. It is hard to fathom, or like Billy Graham's daughter, or to be able to say, yeah, what they do is they discard you, and a narcissist does. And what I tell people, I said, I know this is painful. And people, by the way, are super relieved when I share that. Oh, I don't know just textbook. I know firsthand, like, oh, okay, you get it. Because if you have not, I don't wish a narcissist on anybody, but if you have not experienced it firsthand, it's hard to understand. And people go, oh, you'll be fine, or they're nice, or don't let them get to you. They don't understand the abuse, the dismissiveness, the hurt, the smear campaigns, the whole nine yards. But yeah, to be able to share that. So as you described, and that sounds like an amazing conference, Women of Faith, but to validate that point, when you're feeling so low, like your life is just in shambles now, it's crumbled. You're left with not feeling value and worth, and maybe financially you're in the dumpster in the moment, basically, right? Like, what am I going to do? And then to go, oh, look, these people, they seem all happy, and why do I want to be around that? But I want to encourage people to lean into that, because you will find to your circle of supportive people and or person, because that's where you need support. You need to hear even a word of something hopeful and positive. And like I like to say to people that come to me in my either counseling or coaching, sometimes for the first time ever, and or fast forward from abuse to brokenness, they're getting healthy corrective emotional experiences. I'm here to walk through this with you. I believe you. And I've had many people go, it feels so validating. I'm not being questioned. I'm being supported, right? So we need that. So I want to encourage people lean into that, because there's people that do truly care. There's people that really have been through it, like you, like me, many other people. And I'm, like I said, behind the scenes, I'm hearing more and more and more real life stories. I went through a horrific hurricane for sure. It was hard to fathom, but some of these stories make mine look like a powder puff, and I didn't think that was possible, right? But to say, we're going to get through this, you're going to be okay.
That
So,
is so hopeful. And the fact that you're speaking up, and even for me to kind of say this, because most people in my sphere don't know that part of my story, only because now I have enough distance that I don't feel threatened. But there were many years where I was always looking over my shoulder, and I wasn't sure. I had a feeling. I learned to trust my instincts. And sometimes I would get off work and everything in me would say, don't walk out of the building the normal way, go a different way. And I'd be like, it's night, I'm tired. But I would listen to my instincts because I had a counselor that believed in me, because the people around me all thought he was a teddy bear.
and that's so true, that often people around you will think he or she, oh, they're so kind. They wouldn't be like that, right? And trusting your instincts is very important. And having the distance is healing and healthy too, because they're really good about trying to lure you back in as well. In my case, I feel extremely blessed because my family saw through him way before I did. I wish I would have. Cost several years, but I shouldn't say cost, because I learned a painful lesson. Now God is allowing me to help touch way more hearts and lives and souls, to give hope, not to ever put anybody down, but to say, I didn't deserve that. You didn't deserve that. And so it helped with me. I didn't have one person say, well, why aren't you staying? It was like, I'm so glad you could see through this, and are you okay? And that was a blessing, but that's not your norm. Norm would be people saying, what's wrong with you? Why don't you want to be with that person?
They do so good at isolating you and breaking you off from your friends and all the things that we hear about, but it's hard to recognize it, that that's what's happening, to me. And I get like you, I feel so grateful that I had people in my life that were like, you need professional help to walk you through this, because there is that lure. He kept trying to lure me back, and I would believe it because I was a Christian and I didn't want a divorce and I wanted to believe. And he would use scripture against me. He would use my coaching against me until I felt like I was nothing. And it's been a journey rebuilding, but
Oh, yeah.
also the fact that we can still
Yes.
have the life no matter what our age, no matter what our situation, if we choose to look at it, to get the help. And like you said, the veil, when we allow that veil to drop and we say, I am resilient and I will do the work, because it's work, right, Joni?
It's very much work. And by the way, I want to validate you being brave, even sharing parts of your story in here. And thank you, because people need to hear that. I'm very similar to you, Christian woman. So as I said, he knew seminary. He used the Bible against me. You can't leave. That wouldn't be right. And it caused me to stay longer and to question. However, that part of, yes, getting professional help, yes, have trusted friends or family, but professional help, because it's a whole different level of healing. I'm not just saying it because I'm blessed to be working in this field and a firm believer. The work that I do with people and watching the huge changes in their life for the better. But when I've had to reach out and get support from a professional too, can't put a price tag on that. And I am so grateful because, yes, over time, it does take time. You can come back stronger and better. And I'm not bitter at all. I have forgiveness. I walk in love and light and gratitude that I don't have to share my heart and life with somebody that's going to not care about me. And that's the other part I tell people, as hard as it is, the sooner you can get that support and realize, and it's hard, I'm saying firsthand, that they do not care about you. They're okay with causing pain and hurt. In fact, they thrive on it. So the sooner you can go, they don't care about you, and use the gray rock method and get that support, you're going to be on your healing journey sooner than later. And you're worth it.
And you're worth it. I read a book because back in the day, this was, gosh, over 20 years ago, there wasn't support for narcissistic abuse. And I'd been conditioned as a child because of mental illness in our family. And I read the book called The Gift of Fear by Gavin de Becker. And
Mm.
he had protected many celebrities. So it was a fun read. But, he said some things like engage and enrage. And he talked about how you have to just break the ties. But also, he said for some women, if they get the restraining order, that's when they actually end up dying. And I did not want a restraining order, and the people I loved wanted me to have one. But I knew deep down that they would find me pushed off a cliff or down some stairs. I knew there would be an accident. I knew in the depth of my being because of little hints he had said, things he had done. And so I chose not to do that, which caused great conflict in my family, but not with the professionals I was working with. They loved me, they believed me, they supported me, and they helped support me in how to speak to my family to keep myself safe. And I think that's why professional help, and I've always heard a good counselor is well counseled, and you took that route. You got counseled well so that now you can offer that.
Absolutely. And so important too to be able to have our own healing journey, to be supported, to have people that will help you process what you've been through. Because I have so many people like literally I've had them say, Joanie, am I crazy? They're saying this, that, or the other thing. And back to the safety place, that is so important too, that people do what they need to do that's healthy, that will keep themselves safe, because that type of personality, they want to put every kind of fear in you.
My youngest was in a little group for divorced family because a few years earlier we had gone through a divorce with their dad. His counselor came to my door and she said, he told me, your son told me he took your purse and he's been hiding it. And I said, yeah. She said, that is abuse and I'm going to have to report it and you're going to have to do something about it. But I remember, wow, someone with authority is telling me that what he's doing is not excusable. And so there was just enough of those key things, I think, to help me stay on track. And I did bend a little. I don't know if you did, but I bent a little, but now I am free from it. And I do think I recognize the red flags more because I've done the work in my heart.
And that's important. And it took me a good couple of years to untangle from this. And I didn't think I was ever going to get free, but to tie into that trained professional, right? And get your support and somebody to be able to say, because for me early on, when my counselor would say, like, you think somebody withholding something that they're like, that's abuse, or not financially living up to their end. They're taking advantage. That's abuse. I'm like, what? That's abuse. Because in my brain, it would be like, well, abuse is somebody constantly putting you down. That was back then, or physical abuse, right? But then to untangle that, so now I can help people to see that, like, no, that is abusive. That's not okay. Gaslighting is abusive. Putting you down is abusive. It's really important, and to recognize that you can find your way forward with proper help and support. And another part of that, because we're both faith believing Christian women, so there are people that have also been misled by well-meaning pastors, like you got to keep the marriage going. Now, in my case, again, I'm very grateful because I had a pastor say that is not okay, and that's not somebody living to their vows. When we can look at what is a vow, it's not harming somebody or abusing them. That's already breaking a vow, let alone if you're cheating with somebody, even emotionally, sexually implied messages to other women, that's breaking your vows, right? So in that case, that pastor helped me to untangle that part because I was like, but the vows, I take vows very seriously, by the way. I still do to this day, and I have a firm belief in marriage, and it's supposed to be a beautiful thing. But that was getting me askew with the Bible being used against me from the narcissist, and having to untangle that in my mind and how I was raised too. But that's where I say let go of the old blueprint, put in the good information, and match it up with what is true. And I say confusion doesn't come from the Lord, right? We have clarity and peace and joy.
Yeah. And that I was constantly in a state of confusion because I had mental illness in my family. I kept thinking, I am going crazy.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
that wasn't the truth. And so when I found the truth, it did set me free.
absolutely. Yeah. And that is part of it, and being able to have your voice and say that I know this is what's true, whether you're writing it down in a journal and you're looking at that. And that's what I said it's helped many people to start to untangle that when they're like, but they're saying this, this, and this. And I'm like, okay, but what do you know? And what are you hearing they're saying? And then double check that with your own what you know. Because you're
That's so
right,
good.
it creates, they work very rapid on that power and control in the mind. So it causes confusion. Like with my ex used to make all kinds of promises, and I'd want to believe that, right? I was told you can trust me, believe me, right? And so it's causing a lot of confusion. But again, unlearning all that, being looking at what is truth, not what the person's telling you. And again, with red flags, so this is the other part of things I huge advocate for with that recovery piece and people feeling better. I always encourage, I'm like, I'm not here to boss anybody around. People get to have their autonomy and freedom, but I'm like, I encourage you, wait at least a year before dating, work on yourself, learn what red flags are, learn yourself more and to trust yourself, learn what green flags are, learn how to treat yourself well. I had this awareness a while back, like, oh, why was I allowing breadcrumbs in people? No, 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 that's not okay with me anymore. I'm not doing that. Right? But it was tracing it back to, family roots and patterns and things like that. Yes, healing is a gift you give to yourself, and it's a beautiful gift. Painful at times, but a beautiful gift.
Joni, this has been so good. Before we go, I want to know how we can find you and how people can work with you.
You can find me on Psychology Today under Joanie Hanson, also Northwest Counseling and Wellness Inc. And then I have a website, wellnesswithjoanie.com. So that will have all the contact information, and you can read more about me, including some very heart-touching testimonies of real people that have worked with me.
So before we go, tell me about your group that you're wanting to start.
A women's support group. So I'd like a minimum of 6, maximum of 10 women. This will help for narcissistic abuse recovery, and there will be a number of content, including learning a little bit about narcissism, learning boundaries, learning some good self-care. We'll talk more about healthy journaling and compassion therapy, and maybe even what I call some mirror work, which is healthy, they'll create their own positive affirmations, and there will be other helpful content in there, including we may have a couple guest speakers. One is a nutritionist and a few other people who have gone through narcissistic abuse that are on the other end of things now to help empower, inspire, and encourage people.
So, Joanie, before we go, you have covered so many amazing things. What is it that you really, really want us to know?
I like to tell people we're all unique, we're all individual, but you are one of a kind masterpiece, and you are worthy of love and worthy of having an amazing, abundant life. And you can do this one day, one step, one moment at a time.
That's so beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me here and for what you shared too. Thank you for listening to Rise, Reclaim, and Renew. If this episode encouraged you, please leave a 5-star review. It helps this podcast reach more women who need these conversations. And if somebody in your life could benefit, share this episode with them. One share can make a big difference. Until next time, keep rising, keep reclaiming, and keep renewing. Much love, Joanie.